So this session today or now is on hybrid events, creating a plan that will work for all weather. I am Johanna, and this is Chris from GiveSignup, RunSignup. We're here because we think hybrid events are the future. And I kind of, really want to emphasize that we've seen so much innovation and creativity this year. It's been super impressive. And I think one of the things that we're all really excited about is seeing what people do with events in the upcoming years, now that there's really kind of a whole new set of options for how events are formatted. Agenda, we're just going to go through a pretty quick what and why, how you can create a plan for a hybrid event, the technology best practices for setting up your hybrid event, what techniques for raising more within your hybrid event, and then a couple of success stories and how to build this out into a year-round strategy. What and why? The hybrid event definition is pretty basic and simple. A hybrid event is any run, walk, ride, or fundraising event that incorporates both in-person and virtual elements. That is intentionally broad because there is a huge range of what a hybrid event can be. I think the one that we talk about a lot, obviously because we have a lot of runs and walks and rides that use us, is from the endurance perspective. You'll see a lot of examples of that. And that's going to be, a typical 5K race that happens in person, but also has an at-home version that they can complete virtually. But I don't want you to think that that's the only thing that you can do if you want to do a hybrid event. We're starting to see some really interesting options. You can do a gala that has limited in-person attendees, but also has an option to come pick up your locally catered meal to take it home and perhaps watch, some entertainment on your organization from home. To engage kind of two different groups of people or expand your capacity while you have limited in-person. Conferences also, I think, you've seen hybrid conferences for years. I think those are going to become a lot better and a lot more common as you see things going on. Anytime you have some sort of seminar or speaker that's really valuable, providing options for people who can come in person and also people who want to get value out of your organization but can't be there in person. The history of hybrid, like I said, looking at those conferences, history has been around, hybrid has been around for a long time. Virtual events were not new. Having a virtual option for an event was not new. It's just really changed the landscape of what they looked like. But these things did exist. I remember back in 2016, 2014, even talking to events about how to add a virtual option to their race to expand and make a place for people to go if they could not come in person. Hybrid in 2020, I think we really saw as more of a bridge. When things closed down last year, virtual events really saved a lot of the events industry. And hybrid has been kind of the way that we start inching back towards in-person events. The point of hybrid has been to kind of expand capacity. The cost of putting on events has gone up a lot when you talk about reduced capacities and longer times for events. And having a hybrid option allows events to recoup a little bit of that by increasing the amount of people who can participate by bringing them in virtually. It's also rebuilding participant confidence, convincing people that events really are going to happen, that there are things that will be taking place in the next couple of months. I think the next one is a big one, creating a contingency plan for uncertainty. And we saw a ton of this in the fall of this year, particularly as we started to get around turkey trot time, and a lot of states were having huge spikes in viruses. And a lot of our events got shut down relatively late. The events that had a built-in contingency plan were those that had already built out a really robust virtual option. And it made it much easier for them to move people into the virtual option and to also have a real experience behind that virtual option instead of just saying, well, it's virtual now, but that really just means do this on your own. Races that had really planned for a virtual option to begin with were much better prepared for that. Our expectations for 2021, this is the kind of stuff Bob covered, so I'm not going to go into it in depth, but we really do see things coming back gradually. The larger events are going to be the last to come back, but we are starting to see some events in the thousands, depending on the type of event and if they're indoor, outdoor, how much you can spread people out, that kind of thing. We do think there will be some modifications continuing, and there's going to be some variability across the country, but we do expect to see more and more events on the calendar. That means, don't wait until it's October and the events calendar is filled up from people in your area. You want to go ahead and get on people's radar now. So why hybrid? Yeah, I might say this again today. One of the things that we noticed, there's a little bit more work behind a hybrid event because you are essentially putting together two events. The reason that that's worth it is it really expands your realm of possibilities. The first thing that we want to say is it really encourages people to register earlier. I think everyone is familiar with the procrastination of event attendees. And that is only going to be made worse by 2020. People are really gun shy about registering after seeing the wave of cancellations in 2020 and just being really unsure if an event's actually going to happen. We had about a little over a quarter of participants in 2020 were registering on event week. And I think that is probably an optimistic view. So if you want to encourage people to get in earlier, the best way to do that is to send them an option where you can say, if you sign up now, if you can't do this, then you're going to have this other virtual option that is going to be really robust and really fun and really worthwhile. And you know in advance what's going to happen to you if something gets canceled. With that is kind of the participant management piece. It's important that you let them know what is going to happen to them if the hybrid event doesn't happen. And that you are clear about that upfront because that gives them that confidence. The more flexible you can be, the better. People are going to be more likely to sign up if they know they have a couple of different options, but be realistic. You don't want to promise people refunds if you can't realistically give them refunds. Maximizing participation. This is really what it's all about. And it's what it's all about when we move past kind of crisis mode and into regular event operations. You want to reach different groups of people. You're always going to have your traditional participants. These are your loyal people who come to your event year after year after year. They really don't like virtual. They don't want to sit behind a Zoom anymore, or they don't want to do a run on their own. They're looking for a real experience. And maybe they signed up once during the pandemic because they didn't have any other choices, but they're not going to keep coming back virtually. They really want to get out there in person. You want to have that event back for them. You also have your group of people who are currently doing virtual, perhaps because they're cautious or they're high risk, or even just because they prefer virtual. You don't want to take that option away and leave them without a way to participate with you. The last one I think is the really big one, especially as we move into 2022, 2023, is just expanding your realm. You want to have options that can let people participate together. We see so much adoption of events with groups, people who are able to bring their friends and family into the event. And you want to have a way for them to invite all of their friends and family, not only those who are locally. It also really brings together strong supporters of your cause who may not be local and may not be able to participate in your event in person, but want to feel tied to your organization and really want to help you out. Reach new supporters. This goes back to that expanding your realm. I think one of the pieces of pushback that we get a lot when we talk about adding a virtual option is that people don't want to take away from their in-person event. They don't want their normal participants to go online instead and have a weaker and less robust in-person event. From what we've seen, we don't think that's likely to happen. The groups really seem to be pretty separate. You don't have people who normally come in person who are likely to say, I'd rather just go online this time. It's usually two different groups of people. So you're reaching people who wouldn't have shown up to your event in person. One of the things that we pulled from our annual race trends report this year is that 53% of our participants were over 40 for a virtual event versus 46% in person. And they're much more likely to be women. 65% of virtual participants were women compared to 54% of in-person participants. And I think those are likely underestimates of how large that gap is. The gaps are a lot larger if we look back at 2019 or 2018. I think in 2019, a full 75% of virtual participants were women. So these groups are not necessarily overlapping your regular participant group. The last why is pretty simple. Nonprofits can't afford to wait. Everyone needs money now to run your programs, and there's still a lot of traditional fundraisers that are being canceled or can't continue as normal. We've seen in the last year that people are still more than willing to support your cause. They'll participate virtually if they know that's the only way to support the cause. And it's another place to ask for donations. We saw 11.4% of total transactions were donations for races that had them turned on in 2020. People are willing to give. Creating a plan. This is where I come into the it can be more work to put on a hybrid event. That's why you want to do your work in advance, because you want to make sure that you have separate plans for each one. They are laid out, ready to run at the same time, and then you can reuse those for your virtual or hybrid events in future years. A couple of things that you want to make sure you've thought out before you launch your event. Your charitable component, 95% of the events on our platform are organized by or connected to a nonprofit. So if it's not a nonprofit that's organizing it, it's usually a for-profit organization that is partnering with and benefiting a nonprofit. You want to make sure you have your charity component worked out in advance, because that's both a way for you to reach more people by promoting their cause, as well as just to really give back to your community and to have a little bit more going on with your event. Event options, these are going to be the different choices that your participants have, whether that's different distances like a 5K or a 10K, or it is different meal options like a full service dinner or a takeout dinner. We're going to make sure all of those are nailed down in advance and ready to go so that participants can sign up for exactly what they want when they're registering. You want to have your virtual event timeline nailed down. For some events, this will be the same as your in-person event timeline. If you're just doing a seminar, you have, here's the time of the seminar, you come in person or you sign online at this time. But for run, walk, rides, a lot of times the virtual event timeline is longer. You want to give people more time for them to complete the virtual event. And because of that, you're going to have a longer period of time that you need to be engaged with people. So you need to make sure that you have all of that work done in advance and it's clear to people what that timeline is. Pricing for hybrid events can be a little bit tricky. It's not always as straightforward. Normally, if you're doing a run, walk, ride, you see events that are tiered by distance. So you might have a $30 5K and a $50 10K and a $75 half marathon. That makes sense for an in-person event because there's more costs associated with longer distances. But if you're throwing in a virtual event, there isn't necessarily any more cost for the longer distance. So that tier system may not work as well for the virtual option. Another way that we see people do it is tiering it by perks. So every option that you have, each of your options may have the same price or the same base to it. Like everyone is doing 5K, 10K and half marathon runners all pay the same price. Instead, where the prices change is whether they want just a shirt or they want a full prize pack or they want some other sort of perk that you have with them. We also do see some events that try to keep the prices consistent. That's obviously going to depend on your costs, but if you're able to keep the price the same for a virtual and an in-person event, it does make things easier if you want people to be able to move between the two options throughout the course of the day. Communication plan is really important. We put on here specifically shipping timelines. If you are doing anything virtual where you're planning on shipping things, make sure you have worked that out far in advance. And I would put an extra emphasis on that right now because I think there are still some delays with USPS. So you want to make sure that you have both figured out how long it will take for you to get swag to people and that you've communicated that clearly with people so they know when to expect things from you. Budgeting, just a couple of things that you're going to want to consider. If you're looking at different types of costs, again, for the two different types of events, so you're kind of going to have to balance out from them what the true cost of each type of event are and how you can make that up between the two events. So the fixed costs on an in-person event are much higher. Typically, you're going to have things like permits and road closures and rentals of facilities and things that are going to cost the same whether you have 100 participants or 1,000. So where you're going to look to make up some of that difference is that virtual fixed costs tend to be pretty low. You might have a technology subscription or you might need to pay some premium guests, but they're not going to be super huge costs on the virtual side. In contrast, on the variable cost side, you've got some things that'll change depending on how many people show up. But with virtual, I think the two that I would note for variable costs that we really see being significant are, again, shipping. A lot of events choose to pass the cost of shipping on to participants, but you want to know what that is in advance. And marketing, Brian and Amanda are going to talk a lot about marketing in the next session, but we do see that marketing for virtual events tends to be a little bit more expensive because you're trying to reach, generally speaking, new people and people who aren't already on your database. Cost changes, the things that we are seeing that are really kind of driving up costs this year, you kind of want to be aware of when you're putting together your budget. A lot more costs for PPE, more hours for employees. So if you typically have a 2-hour event and now you're breaking it into 3 events with smaller groups at each time, now you have 6 hours that you're needing to pay employees for and other contractors. So you want to make sure that that is counted for from the beginning. If you have events with porta potties, a lot of places are requiring a lower porta potty ratio, more hand washing stations, more cleaning of those. So you may also need to work that cost in. Many of the health departments that we're seeing are requiring individually packaged water or snacks, which is typically going to be both less environmentally friendly and more expensive than how you might have done a grab and go type situation in the end. So you'll want to work that out. Again, across the board, most of the costs for virtual are going to be lower. The exception to that is that you're adding shipping onto whatever else you have. Writing an in-person COVID safety plan. Virtually everywhere that we're seeing right now is asking for the event director to come with their COVID safety plan. Chris is going to talk a lot about this at 3 o'clock today, but a couple of things that you just want to keep in mind when you're writing your plan. Things like packet pickup or any time that you have people checking in, how you keep lines moving quickly, how you keep people from gathering and bunching up in that kind of line. Social distancing at the start or any sort of area in which you have people coming in a large amount, how you keep people apart to a degree, how you're handling your food and water. If you're allowing spectators, how many and how that is spaced out, how you're communicating with your participants to make sure that they're complying with your plan. How you're training your volunteers and giving them safety advice, and anything that you have awards or any other type of situation where you might have people gathering together and clapping and cheering for people, how you're planning on spreading that out to be safe as well. There's a lot of variability, like I said. I know you guys can't click on these links on your screen, but I promise we will send them to you tomorrow as well. You don't need to start from scratch if you're writing a plan. There are a ton of races out there that have written plans so far and have generously shared them. So you can find a lot of these, take a look at what they're doing. You might need to modify it for your specific event or your specific restrictions, but there's a lot of good starting places for these. When you jump over into your virtual plan, I think the one thing that we really have to drive home some on virtual is that it's not 2020 anymore. People have been doing virtual events for a year, and they're expecting a little bit more of a virtual event than they were a year ago. A couple of things that you want to keep in mind is keeping the technology easy. It can be great to have a really fun, unique idea that requires tracking in 9 different places, but it's going to be really hard for people to participate with that. So you want to have something where it's quick and easy for them to come in and get your virtual results, join your event, really easily interact with the event. You want the event to be interactive. So for a race, using something like RaceJoy, where they can have some audio cheers along the way, or thinking of doing a Facebook live stream or some other type of live stream, at the start of the event, the end of the event, sometime within there to really bring people together. Not everyone's going to join that kind of thing, but there are people who want that feel of being at an actual event. And if you can give them just a little bit of a way to interact, that could be really powerful for people. Social, the refrain of the day is social. Think about every way that you can connect people. That has been the best way to make sure that people both bring in more people to your event and have a better time at your event. So anytime that you can offer teams, you can do fun things like photo contests, anything that you can do to get people to engage with each other and not just with you directly. Perks, that's really a lot of times virtual going to be your swag. There is a way that you can go that is just, we don't do any swag. This is all for a cause. It's, it's free and low growth thrills. That's fine. But if you are offering swag, you really wanted to make it swag that someone wants. There are absolutely a group of people out there who join an event for the swag. They want the cool t-shirt. And I would say that is even more true with virtual participants. They are more likely to be motivated by medals and cool swag than in-person participants. So put some thought into your swag if you're going to offer it. Unique themes. We see a lot of crazy themes out there. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. There's a million Cinco de Mayo events, and that's great, but you might want to think about something different. Offer a National Pizza Day event and get people's attention with something that they haven't seen before. The length of your virtual event, like I said, if you're doing a run, walk, ride, most of those virtual options are going to be longer than the day of your in-person event. The reason for that is that the real benefit of the virtual option is the flexibility and that people can do it on their own timeline. So you want to make sure that you have maximum flexibility. The vast majority, about 75% of these events are between 8 and 90 days. I'd say the 2 to 3 weeks is what we see most often. If you get longer than that, it can be hard to keep people engaged. If it's shorter than that, then it may be harder for people to fit into their schedule. A lot of events want to make sure that they have at least 2 weekends for people to participate to make sure that they're able to actually finish the event. Technology for hybrid. I'm going to go through this. One note that I will make is that there's some screenshots and specifics in here you don't need to worry about. It's just to show you what this looks like in general. We have plenty of checklists for you to use when you're actually going through and setting up your event. So don't worry about writing down how this is supposed to be done right now. The benefit, and one thing that we really think our platform brings to hybrid events is that it all can exist in one place. There isn't confusion. You aren't having people for the virtual event sign up one place and the in-person event sign up somewhere else. And then these people feel like they're all doing separate things. You can see here, this is some event tiles from an event that is set up with several virtual and several in-person options. And these options are presented to someone when they sign on immediately, so they can say, okay, which one do I want to do? I am clear about which one I'm picking. I'm going to pause really quickly here and explain something that I think can be confusing because of the words that we use on our platform right now. We are shifting some of those to make this less confusing in the future, but in order to explain a really key piece of this, I kind of have to back up on it. When you set up a run, walk, ride on GiveSignup or RunSignup, that is going to be set up under the name race. You can change that for public view. It doesn't have to stay race, but it is important because when we talk about the hierarchy on our platform as is, race is up here. That's the entire week or weekend or whatever the range of your event is. And then the event is each separate option. So your 5K or your 10K. We also, I realize, mention events as the overarching event. So I want to be clear on this specific example that we're talking about the event within the larger race or whatever you want to rename that is. That can be renamed to be conference or whatever. Within that, why that's important is that one of the most important things is 99% of the time, it's best to set up your event as one race with multiple events. The reason for that is you, don't want to have 2 different places you're sending people for the signups. You also, at the same time, don't want to have people signing up for a 5K and then you be trying to split them out separately to figure out who's virtual and in person later. So what that means is that you would come in and you'd see those tiles like you did before, where you have a virtual 5K, live 5K, virtual 10K, live 10K. This is what that's going to look like in the setup. And this is where we mean with the events is you're actually setting up here a 5K and then a virtual 5K down here. And it aligns like these tiles on the right-hand side there. That's when you set them up on that screen, just like that, it's going to pop up and you'll have the options all on one page. The flexible participant management, the reason that you're keeping them all within one platform is to make it really easy. So if someone has signed up for the virtual event and then realizes actually they can do the in-person event, it's easy for them to switch between them. It's also easy for you to do any participant management down the line with them if you need to defer them to a future race or let them change into another race that you're offering later that year. Within those events, so if you have your 5K and your 10K set up, there's a couple of settings and a couple of features that you're going to want to keep separate throughout because you're going to want to deal with those participants in different groups. We're going to go through a couple of the main ones, the main areas where you're going to want to make sure that you have 2 different things set up so that you can keep everyone informed of the information for their specific choice. This is on your event website. If you look at the before, you can see that we automatically pull in the date and location of your event. That's what Allison was talking about with the data-driven websites. It automatically knows that information because that information is in your event. However, in this case, you might want to change that because you don't want people to see the location and be confused if they're doing the virtual option, or you don't want them to see the full range of dates if they're doing the in-person option. So both of those are customizable, and you can actually change them so that they look like the after screen that just has the date of the in-person event and does not show you the exact location. Similarly, on the front page, you can do the same kind of thing so that you can have directions to the in-person event available, but also have a note specifying that you can run this anywhere. You don't need to show up at the Grouse Mountain Welcome Center. If you are virtual, that's fine. So you can do a couple of quick things there just to clarify for everyone and make sure it's really clear for the virtual participants what they're doing. Event-specific confirmation emails. I think this is really important for people to get their details right off the bat. If you have an in-person event, you're going to have a couple of things that you're going to really want to highlight in your confirmation email. You know, where the event is, if there's corral times for them, what their protocols are for being there on site. On the other hand, if you send that all to all of your participants, it's gonna be really confusing to your virtual participant who's gonna read that and think, well, I didn't think I had to show up. What does this mean for me? So on the virtual end, you're gonna make sure that you have the dates and times of completion really available, any sort of deadlines for switching between events, when you're gonna be shipping their swag, and really importantly, how do they report their virtual results to your event? Registration follow-up. These are somewhat similar. These are going to be manual emails that or automated emails that you can set up to go out to your registrants after they register at whatever interval you choose. They're very easy to find, but just like with the customized emails, the confirmation emails, you can set them up to send by event. So you can send a different one to your virtual 10-mile event than you do to your in-person 10-mile event, and you can specify the details for each event separately there. Shipping setup. Shipping is always tricky. If you are doing any sort of swag shipping, we recommend that you turn on our shipping features so that we can verify that the address is a correct shipping address, and make sure that we have information correct for you. You also don't necessarily want to be asking that information though of everyone who's coming in. So if you set up your shipping setup separately by event, you can ask only your virtual participants who may be getting their swag shipped if they have for their address, and not bother and confuse your in-person participants who are expecting to pick up the event on site. A couple more things that you're going to want to separate. We're not going to touch on these right now because Chris is going to talk about them at 3 o'clock. Just some of your race day things that you'll want to set up a little bit separately to make sure that both groups of participants have everything they need. On the flip side, there's a couple of things that you really want to keep together, and that is anything that connects people. Any sort of photos. Bob talked about the photo platform that can be used. I think it's a really cool feature to have in-person participants loading photos, and you can load photos of them, but also have your virtual participants loading photos of themselves. It's a way that makes people really feel like they're a part of the same event. Any sort of social teams and incentives. Brian and Amanda are going to talk about referral and swag rewards in the next session. It's not only a great marketing tool, it's also a great way just to get people to participate together. Fundraising, this is really key. If you have any sort of fundraising goal, make sure that your fundraising goal is a goal for everyone who's there, both virtual and in person, and that you're talking about it evenly between them. And that's a way to bring people together to work towards the cause. Any of your social media as well, you want to keep everyone in the same place, participating in the same event. And I think we are going to let Chris take it to talk about raising more.
Great job, Johanna. Let's all give Johanna a round of applause. Yes, well done, well done. Yes, we're going to talk about how to raise more with hybrid events and engage your supporters. And if you'll go to the next slide, we can. Johanna, if you'll go to the next slide, we can, thank you. We're nailing it. It's going really good. So the first of all, this seems like sort of a no-brainer, but it's really great. You got to make sure you enable those donations, both for run, walk, rides, and ticket events. They both have integrated donations, and you can do that right under donations and setup in the dashboard. You enhance your race by turning on simple donations and using your own branding. You can make it look exactly like the branding you have on your website using our easy tools. And you can give the donors the option to cover the processing fee. And what we find that when offered the option for donors to cover the donation processing fee, it brings down that fee to about 1.9% on average. So if you think about it, if you're already passing on the registration fee, and for the most part, donors are covering the donation fee, the most you are paying on this entire extravaganza is 1.9%, which is a pretty amazing deal. And you also can include a donate checkout option. And so it's in two different places on Run, Walk, Rides and on ticket events. So on Run, Walk, Rides, see, this is Run, Walk, Ride put together always makes you want to say Run, Walk, Wide, which is not how that works. So Run, Walk, Ride, there we go. Donations, you go to donations, charity partners for Run, Walk, Ride, and you must create a charity on donations and fundraising, then charity to use this feature. But for donations on ticket events, you can just go to donations, donation setup, and donation display settings. And you'll see down there in that lower right-hand corner that you can add a $10, where once you turned it on, it says add a $10 donation to support Lifeline of Ohio. Also, we have these great donor covered fees, which I was mentioning earlier. And this is where you see that page that gives you where you can adjust how that happens. So of course, the fee can be added onto the charge, it can come out of the charge, and it can be split. And this is where you can make that choice both for registrations, for store purchases, for donations. And here's also where you can give registrants the option to pay the processing fee or option to pay the donation fee. And you can even customize that language to really entice people to do that. The other nice thing to note is once you turn that on, that box is automatically checked when they are checking out. So they have to uncheck it to not cover the fee. So just an extra little elbow to the ribs to make sure they do the right thing and take care of that fee. And donation levels are a wonderful way to encourage folks to donate as well. Because oftentimes, I'll find myself going to donate and I'll get to the point and I maybe won't know what they're expecting or what is a common donation. And so giving folks levels gives them that sort of guide to see what people are donating. You can even go a step further. You see where there are blanks next to each of these donation amounts. You can name them. You can give them, bronze, silver, or gold, or what have you, to give sort of that hierarchy to show, that a greater donation has higher value for the organization and gives them the ability to do more with it. You also can do a combined donation thermometer. So if you turn on the cover page, which I've been accused of being a cover page evangelist because I think they're wonderful. I think they make your race look so cool. You can customize things really well. But one of the features you can do is turn on your donation thermometer to your cover page to highlight the progress of all your participants. And so it's super easy. It's right under that cover page section of the back end. And it's one of those data components. And as everyone donates, they can see the progress made, and especially if you have a challenge going on and people are returning to your site over and over again, they can really see that progress as it goes by. Also, it's really important if you have a great constituency that has their own constituency, shall we say, you can enable fundraisers for a Run, Walk, Ride. So you can encourage folks to create their own peer-to-peer fundraiser to reach out to their friends and family. And they can share that via email or via their social media so that folks can come and donate. And that's under fundraising and individual fundraisers and general settings, where you can set up default goals and messaging that pop up. But the nice thing is, once someone is setting up their fundraiser, they have the option to individualize it, to add a photo, even to put in their own personal message saying why they support. Another optional step is team fundraising, which fundraising teams are not connected to race groups and teams, and we don't recommend that you do both at the same time because not every fundraising race needs teams. But if you have a particularly competitive group, fundraising teams can be great in that instance as well. And this is where you would put in that information that goes to the donation goal thermometer, so that combined fundraising goal. Your cause can be both the reason for your event and the reason participants support your event. So setting a collective goal really brings participants together. And you see here, we've got a start date, but not an end date. We see a lot of times races coming back to us after they've closed saying, oh, but we wanted to keep donations open longer. So if you don't put an end date in, they will remain open and you'll be able to keep accepting those donations and keep even overachieving that goal. Oh, this is one of the things that people love the most is our Facebook fundraiser integration, where you can set it up so that if your nonprofit already receives donations through Facebook, we have our automatic integration turned on. So if someone sets up a fundraiser through your RunSignup or GiveSignup site, they are then at the end prompted to create a quick and easy mirrored Facebook fundraiser. So they're then collecting funds both on their Facebook page and on their RunSignup, GiveSignup fundraiser page. And you can see if you look to this one on the right, we collect the information on all the donations. So we're able to show that they've gotten, of course, the donations we process, but also we show that they've gotten certain money from Facebook as well. So the whole collective number is listed there. And it's great because it's a simple setup. It increases donations. There's no processing fee on Facebook donations, which is really great. And a lot of people tend to have a greater sphere of influence on Facebook, so they can really spread that message. Here's some customer success stories. First, we have the Humana Kentucky Derby Festival Mini and Marathon. So for their in-person option, they had new in-person courses to allow for more distancing and a multi-day event. They had 4 days for the mini and 1 day for the marathon, and they had light aid, which was self-serve water. For their virtual option, they had 1 month to complete the event. They received a digital bib and certificate, a virtual race bag, race joy tracking, and a playlist for as they ran. They also had self-reported results, which of course all of our virtual and hybrid events have that easy option if you'd like to turn it on. And then they also, they have 5,000 in-person participants and 1,000 virtual participants. Wow, that's an amazing number to see after last year. That's so great. And they have a charity runner program. So runners can select from any of the event's charity partners to raise funds for. And they renamed fundraiser to be a charity runner, which is another fantastic feature where pretty much anything you want to change wording wise to reflect what you're trying to do, you can do with us, which is really awesome. And then the Golden Nugget Triathlon, which is a hybrid within a hybrid. Like a vest in a vest. No, that's a joke. It's a live in-person event. It's a virtual event, and it's a hybrid with some in-person with a run swim optional and some virtual with a bike and swim optional. You can see the 3 events listed right next to each other on that front page. And doing it that way, they give something for everyone. And they've got 1,200 plus people currently registered. And they have relatively even registration between all 3 options. And they were already halfway to their donation goal of $10,000 for the Clare House. And this is a hybrid ticket event, which is Taste of the Town, which is, they already did it once and they're doing it again. And it is a hybrid experience because while the eating takes place remotely, part of the experience is the pickup. Even in cars, people enjoyed the sense of community and camaraderie of seeing each other as they picked up their delicious meals to take home. So round 1 of the event was a roaring success, and they raised $9,323 for their nonprofit partner, including shares of ticket sales. They got $5,880 from donations, nearly triple their goal of $2,000, and 61% of transactions included a donation. And round 2 has already reached a $5,000 donation goal, which is really exciting. And now we have our IEFT ticket event, which is the Arkansas School in Tanzania. So this was a gala that was a mix of pre-recorded and live content. So sort of a dinner thing where they also had a breakout session with students. And at the end of the call, they had sort of like, they set a goal to raise $75,000 in 15 minutes. They did it a couple ways. They had a donation form with us via GiveSignup that people could find and donate to. They also were accepting Venmo and pledges. And in that 15 minutes they raised, or that night they raised $149,000, which is an incredible amount of money, which is so great. And then of course, there's the Walk to End Epilepsy, which is a free hybrid event. So now with no charge or registration, 100% of the focus was on fundraising. So everyone who joins is a fundraiser, and fundraisers are just called participants. So people are earning their shirt. They're not like buying their shirt with their registration. And while there's no fundraiser minimum, the incentive to raise $100 to earn a shirt is there. And of course, anyone who is living with epilepsy gets the shirt for free. So we think that of hybrid as a really year-round strategy. Hybrid is more than just one event. Hybrid is the future of events, incorporating a range of event types and fundraising tactics into your yearly calendar. And that helps insulate against unexpected cancellations and expands the type of supporter sorry, I lost my thought. Expands the type of supporter who engages with your organization. We've got a great graph over here that shows you how our technology supports live events, virtual options, flexible participant options, digital rewards. Everything is cause first and promotes a safe social connection. And here's a great example of what a hybrid year-round calendar could look like. In January, you've got your hybrid run walk with a New Year's Day 5K. In February, an in-person event, a pancake breakfast. In March, another in-person event, a pie day bake sale on 3/14. In April, an online fundraising, spring appeal, email and direct mail. In May, a Mother's Day 5K hybrid run walk. In June, another virtual event, Summer Vacation Run Anywhere 5K. What a great idea, I love that. In July, a virtual reading challenge for those students who have books to read. For the fall, August, a hybrid event, annual in-person gala with auction from home. September, an in-person event donations for a back-to-school supply drive. In October, in-person event, a Halloween party and costume parade. I will be there dressed as Iron Man, of course. In November, online fundraising with a Giving Tuesday campaign. And in December, of course, most everyone does an online year-end appeal.
Right. I think that's it. The last point that I will really make is just driving home what we kind of have noted. There's a ton of creativity here. If you looked at those examples that we have, none of them are the same and none of them are your typical, what you might think of with a hybrid event. If you're willing to continue to be creative, think about what works for you and what works for your participants. It could go a long way to making your events really fun and engaging for everyone. We have a couple of minutes left. Whitney and Elizabeth, if there's any questions that are good for the whole group.
Let me see. We've gotten to most of these, but a couple that have come up maybe a couple of times or that would be good to address. Somebody asked what the best practices for handling awards. Do you keep them similar across your live race and your virtual race? What do you award for virtual?
So yeah, I mean, I would say definitely you want to keep those results separate. It's not equivalent when someone's doing virtually versus what they're doing on a course live. So if you're going to have awards for both, you want to keep them separate. With that being said, I'd say the majority of virtual events don't offer awards for their virtual component. Again, because it's not really a competition the same way anyways, but B, because again, those are typically going to be participants who are not as excited about participating or about winning to begin with. So most virtual events don't have awards. If they do, we've seen some that have done like a gift card or something that would be digital and easy to send, so they aren't trying to ship a trophy or something. But we see a lot more virtual events going with medals for everyone than awards for top people.
Could you also explain again, I think we talked about this at the beginning of the presentation, but why it's a good idea to charge the same fee or roughly the same fee for your in-person and your virtual options?
Yeah, so there's definitely events where that's not possible because your in-person costs are so high comparatively that you can't really justify it for virtual. So the caveat is if it absolutely doesn't make sense for your event, that's fine. You can come up with other pricing structures. If you are able to price them the same, the benefit of that is it makes it really easy for people who aren't sure yet what they're going to be doing. You have a lot of people who they you have a lot of people who may be not sure yet what's going to be happening in May, and they are looking to, hoping to join in person, but they're not positive that that's going to happen. If they get there and they haven't gotten their vaccine yet, and they're like, never mind, I want to do the virtual option instead, having them at the same price makes that process of transferring them super easy because there isn't any difference in price. It's possible to do it regardless, and they would just pay a difference. But it's a little bit of a simpler sell to say, it doesn't really matter, you're registered, you can always change your mind later.
Right. I think that's all the questions that are kind of outstanding.
Awesome. All right. Well, we will give you guys an extra 4 minutes here on the break. We'll be back here at 2 o'clock to talk about marketing for your hybrid event. We'll have a little poll in the meantime, but you guys are free to step away for a minute and get something to drink or eat. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.